Hey everybody, and welcome back to yet another digital art lesson. My name is Ben Dumas and I am one of the art teachers at Clarendon Elementary. Today we're going to talk about illuminated manuscript and what that means. But first I wanted to show some of the artwork from last week, my treasure map lesson. The first treasure map is done by Laszlo, and I love how he chose to do a submarine in his. He also did a very extremely detailed pirate ship up there on the corner. Looks like he had a grown-up help him burn the edges. It looks very authentic. Looks like a real old treasure map. Good job, Laszlo. And this is Shannon's treasure map. Shannon chose to crumble her paper and tear the edges to make it look old and authentic. She also covered the entire page, and I love when my students do that. It shows that they really had a good time with it, finished it. It looks very complete. I love how she chose to incorporate all these little sea monsters here and the skulls. Great job, Shannon. The next one we're going to look at is Isaac's. And Isaac looks like he used some either coffee or tea to stain his paper there. And he had a grown-up burn the edges, crumble it. I liked how it looks like he maybe used oil pastel because these are very bright, vibrant colors. This is awesome. Great job. And the last one we're going to look at is Della's. And I love how Della chose to label every single place on her treasure map. Got Emerald Cove, the Forest of Death. She used her imagination on this and had a good time with it. And Della also did the castle lesson. I did a little how-to draw a castle, and this is what I got back from Della. And this is great. She did an amazing job. I love the drawbridge. It looks like real wood. All right, so today we're going to talk about how to make an illuminated manuscript. And you're probably wondering, what is an illuminated manuscript? Well, I did bring my dictionary to give us a better idea about what it means. All right, so let's start with the word illuminate. Now, illuminate has lots of meanings, but today we're going to talk about this meaning. To decorate an initial letter or word with designs, tracings, etc., of gold, silver, or bright colors. It also says to decorate a manuscript, page, or border with such initial letters and miniature pictures. So it basically means to decorate a letter, okay? And it's talking about that initial letter, all right? And we're going to move on into some examples in a moment. But I want to tell you what the definition of manuscript is. Manuscript is a book or document written by hand, especially before the invention of printing. So this book was printed, right? A manuscript has to be done by hand, okay? All right, so before I show you my example, I wanted to share some of these old fairy tale books that I had in my library. The first one is Grimm's Fairy Tales, written by the Brothers Grimm. And this dates back to 1939. So this is a really, really old book. But this one, I believe, is even older. Andersen's Fairy Tales. And this is from I believe, Hans Christian Andersen, 1932. So this is a really old book. Another fairy tales. This is The Ugly Duckling. Oops, oh no, this page fell out. Well, might as well show you an example that way. So here's an illustration from The Ugly Duckling. You maybe heard The Ugly Duckling. That's a very old fairy tale. The Three Little Pigs. Everybody knows the Three Little Pigs, right? So you could do a number 3 for the 3-letter pigs if you wanted to illuminate that. Okay? Here's Little Red Riding Hood. All right, you all know Little Red Riding Hood, but I've always loved that fairy tale. And there's different versions of Little Red Riding Hood, which some of you may know too. And this I love, and I wanted to show you because it's exactly what we're talking about today. So look at the T in the title, The Bear and the Kingbird. The T is Illuminated Manuscript, right? It's very beautifully decorated. It's bigger than the H and the E. It has its border around it. So this book is very beautiful, and it's very highly detailed. Here's another one, the T. Again, very detailed. Okay, and there it looks like the bear is dreaming of this magical place. I've always loved this illustration in the beginning of this book. Okay, and Arnold Lobel, who wrote Frog and Toad books, did a book on fables. And fables are kind of like fairy tales. But they usually have some sort of golden rule that you should learn at the end of each story, right? There's usually a lesson involved in a fable. Okay, kind of like fairy tales too, right? Don't talk to strangers in Little Red Riding Hood, right? Okay, this book is pretty cool. It's by Chris Van Allsburg. It's not very old, but he does a very good job illuminating manuscript in this book, right? Here's the Z being zapped by lightning. Here's the A in an avalanche, right? In an avalanche. And I always like this one too. The M was beginning to melt. And here's an M kind of melting off of the table there. Very beautifully illustrated. All right, so that's how he chose to illuminate manuscript. Okay? Here's a couple more examples. If any of you have seen Sleeping Beauty, in the beginning of that movie, they open up this book. And in this book, there's illuminated manuscript. Look at the I in a faraway land. Right? Also the A for Princess Aurora is illuminated very beautifully. Look at the borders around each page. Okay? And this is another one that I printed out because I thought it did a good job showing what illuminated manuscript looks like. I chose to do a J for, can anybody guess? Magic beans. Climbed up a big beanstalk, right? Jack and the beanstalk. So here's my example. I'll give you a minute to look at it. Okay, so I took the letter J and I chose to tell a whole story around that letter, right? And that's exactly what I would like you all to do. So I chose the important things that I thought were in the story Jack and the Beanstalk. And to me, that is the beanstalk, a castle, a giant, and I like to think of Jack's house when I think of Jack and the Beanstalk. I like to think that his house wasn't as big as that castle, right? And he was so taken away by the time he got back up, or by the time he got up to the castle, he was so excited how big and fabulous everything was because he came from this little tiny house. And that's the way I always imagine the story. So he did meet a giant up there. Here he is climbing his way up the beanstalk. Okay. And I chose to do a little border here and add some really bright colors. There's the magic beans in the satchel there. Okay. So I chose to do it on a fairy tale or a fable, right? You can do it on whatever story you'd like. If you wanted to do Harry Potter, you could do a big H and put the things on there that best represent Harry Potter to you. You could do Little Red Riding Hood, and maybe you could do an R, and maybe put the big bad wolf in there, right? And maybe her with her little basket of food for her granny, okay? Or you could do Humpty Dumpty, You could do an E for egg, or you could do a big H, and you could show him falling off of the side of the H maybe. So just keep an open mind. Think about which one you want to do first before you start drawing, okay? Get some ideas going in your head first before you start putting anything on paper, all right? I'm looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. I had a really good time with my example, as I always do, and I love sharing it with you all. Please continue to share your artwork back with me on Parent Square, or you can email it to me. I'm gonna be showing examples of students' artwork every week at the beginning of the lesson. So please stay tuned for next week and take care.